The foreign relations of Russia is the policy of the Russian government by which it guides the interactions with other nations, the citizens and foreign organizations. This article covers the foreign policy of the Russian Federation since the dissolution of the Soviet Union in late 1991. For the Russian Empire to 1917, see Russian Empire, NATO and the European Union. Russia is a member of the Commonwealth of Independent States, Union of Russia and Belarus, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Paris Club, and the North Atlantic Cooperation Council. It signed the NATO Partnership for Peace Initiative on the 22nd of June 1994. On the 20th of May 1997, NATO and Russia signed the NATO-Russia Founding Act, which the parties hoped would provide the basis for an enduring and robust partnership between the alliance and Russia, one that could make an important contribution to European security architecture in the 21st century, though already at the time of its signing doubts were cast on whether this accord could deliver on these ambitious goals. This agreement was superseded by the NATO-Russia Council that was agreed at the Reykjavik Ministerial and unveiled at the Rome NATO Summit in May 2002. On the 24th of June 1994, Russia and the European Union signed a partnership and cooperation agreement. Former Soviet republics, the non-Russian countries that were once part of the USSR, have been termed the near abroad by Russians. More recently, Russian leaders have been referring to all 15 countries collectively as post-Soviet space, while asserting Russian foreign policy interest throughout the region. After the USSR was dissolved by the presidents of Russia, Ukraine and Belarus, Russia tried to regain some sort of influence over the post-Soviet space by creating, on the 8th of December 1991, a regional organization, the Commonwealth of Independent States. The following years, Russia initiated a set of agreements with the post-Soviet states which were designed to institutionalize the relations inside the CIS. However, most of these agreements were not fulfilled and the CIS republics began to drift away from Russia, which at the time was attempting to stabilize its broken economy and ties with the West. One of the major issues which had an influence on the foreign relations of Russia in FSU was the remaining large Russian minority populations in many countries of the near abroad. This issue has been dealt with in various ways by each individual country. They have posed a particular problem in countries where they live close to the Russian border, such as in Ukraine and Kazakhstan, with some of these Russians calling for these areas to be absorbed into Russia. By and large, however, Russians in the near abroad do not favor active intervention of Russia into the domestic affairs of neighboring countries, even in defense of the interests of ethnic Russians. Moreover, the three Baltic states have clearly signaled the desire to be outside any claimed Russian sphere of influence, as is reflected by the joining both the NATO alliance and the European Union in 2004. Close cultural, ethnic and historical links exist between Russia, Belarus and Ukraine. The traditional Russian perspective is that they are one ethnic group, with Russians called Great Russians, Belarusians White Russians and Ukrainians Little Russians. This manifested itself in lower levels of nationalism in these areas, particularly Belarus and Ukraine, during the disintegration of the Soviet Union. However, few Ukrainians accept a younger brother status relative to Russia, and Russia's efforts to insert itself into Ukrainian domestic politics such as Putin's endorsement of a candidate for the Ukrainian presidency in the last election, are contentious. Russia maintains its military bases in Armenia, Belarus, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, and Tajikistan. Russia's relationships with Georgia are at the lowest point in modern history due to the Georgian-Russian espionage controversy and due to the 2008 Russo-Georgian War. Georgia broke off diplomatic relations with Russia and has left the Commonwealth of Independent States. Russia's relations with Ukraine, since 2013, are also at the lowest point in history as a result of the pro-Western Euromaidan revolution in Ukraine, the 2014 Crimean crisis and the pro-Russian insurgency in Ukraine's Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Ukraine, like Georgia, has introduced a bill to the Verkhovna Rada to withdraw from the Commonwealth of Independent States, and Kiev has begun the process of doing so. Mediation in international conflicts. Russia has played an important role in helping mediate international conflicts and has been particularly actively engaged in trying to promote a peace following the Kosovo conflict. Russia's foreign minister claimed on the 25th of February 2008 that NATO and the European Union have been considering using force to keep Serbs from leaving Kosovo following the 2008 Kosovo Declaration of Independence. Russia is a co-sponsor of the Middle East peace process and supports UN and multilateral initiatives in the Persian Gulf, Cambodia, Burma, Angola, the former Yugoslavia, and Haiti. Russia is a founding member of the Contact Group and a member of the G8. In November 1998, Russia joined the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. Russia has contributed troops to the NATO-led stabilization force in Bosnia and has affirmed its respect for international law and OSCE principles. Russia has accepted UN and/or OSCE involvement in instances of regional conflict in neighboring countries, including the dispatch of observers to Georgia, Moldova, Tajikistan, and Nagorno-Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. Russia supported, on the 16th of May 2007, the setup of the International Tribunal to try the suspects in the murder of the Lebanese Prime Minister, Rafik Hariri. Territorial disputes. The Kuril Islands dispute concerns the islands of Iturup, Kunashir, and Shikotan and the Carbomai group, all of which had belonged to the Russian Empire until the Russo-Japanese War of 1904–1905 when Japan occupied them and the southern part of the Sakhalin Island. The Russian SFSR, then part of the USSR, got them back at the end of the Second World War during the 1945 Yalta Conference, when the Allies agreed to the cession of the islands to the USSR. However, this stipulation was not included in the Treaty of Capitulation of Japan, which later gave Japan a chance to demand the return of the controversial Northern Territories. However, the disputed territory is currently administered by the Russian Federation, and majority of the inhabitants of the disputed territory is supportive of Russian administration. Disputes over the boundary with the People's Republic of China were finally resolved on the 21st of July 2008. On the day the foreign ministers of the two countries signed an agreement in Beijing. Under the agreement, Russia ceded approximately 174 square kilometers of territory to China. The territory transferred comprised Tarabrov Island and approximately half of Bolshoy Ussuriysky Island. The area transferred was largely uninhabited. The settlement of the border dispute followed over 40 years of negotiations. The final settlement was the result of the Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation, which was concluded on the 2nd of June 2005 and signed by Chinese Foreign Minister Li Xiaoxing and his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov. This followed talks in Vladivostok. There is now no border dispute between Russia and China along the 4,300 kilometers border. Caspian Sea boundaries are not yet determined among all littoral states. Issues between Russia and the states bordering it, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, were settled in 2003. Russia has no common land or Caspian Sea border with Turkmenistan and Iran, which do not agree with the Caspian Sea settlements. Estonian and Russian negotiators reached a technical border agreement in December 1996. The border treaty was initialed in 1999. On the 18th of May 2005, Estonian Foreign Minister Urmas Paet and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov signed in Moscow the treaty between the government of the Republic of Estonia and the government of the Russian Federation on the Estonian-Russian border, and the treaty between the government of the Republic of Estonia and the government of the Russian Federation on the delimitation of the maritime zones in the Gulf of Finland and the Gulf of Narva. On the 20th of June 2005, the Riigikogu ratified the signed treaties by adopting Ratification Act, objected by Russia. The President of Estonia, Arnold Rüütel, announced them on the 22nd of June 2005. As the preamble of the Ratification Act mentioned the Tartu Peace Treaty, Russia interpreted this as in theory giving Estonia a right to claim some territories of PSKV in Leningrad Oblast of Russia later. On the 31st of August 2005, Russian President Vladimir Putin gave a written order to the Russian Foreign Ministry to notify the Estonian side of Russia's intention not to participate in the border treaties between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Estonia. On the 6th of September 2005, the Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation forwarded a note to Estonia, in which Russia informed that it did not intend to become a party to the border treaties between Estonia and Russia and did not consider itself bound by the circumstances concerning the object and the purposes of the treaties. Russia has made no territorial claim in Antarctica and does not recognize the claims of any other nation. The Soviet Union signed the Antarctic Treaty in 1960. Disputes over the boundary with Georgia relating to Russia's recognition of Georgian regions, South Ossetia and Abkhazia as independent states, due to the 2008 South Ossetia War, and which has led to the severance of all diplomatic relations between them. Following the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation refused to recognize Ukrainian sovereignty over Sevastopol as well as over the surrounding Crimean Oblast, using the argument that the city was never practically integrated into the Ukrainian SSR because of its military status. This claim was relinquished in the bilateral Peace and Friendship Treaty, which confirmed that both the Crimea and Sevastopol belonged to Ukraine. A separate treaty established the terms of a long-term lease of land and resources in and around Sevastopol by Russia. In the 2014 Crimean crisis of early 2014, Crimea was annexed by Russia. Since then, status of the Crimea and of the city of Sevastopol is currently under dispute between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine and the majority of the UN members consider Crimea to be an autonomous republic of Ukraine and Sevastopol to be one of Ukraine's cities with special status, while Russia and other UN members, on the other hand, consider Crimea to be a federal subject of Russia and Sevastopol to be one of Russia's federal cities. On the 31st of March 2014, the State Duma approved the denunciation of the above-mentioned Peace and Friendship Treaty and long-term lease of land in Sevastopol. International membership. Membership in international organizations. Russia holds a permanent seat which grants it veto power on the Security Council of the United Nations. Prior to 1991, the Soviet Union held Russia's UN seat, but after the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Russian government informed the United Nations that Russia will continue the Soviet Union's membership at the United Nations and all other UN organs. Russia is an active member of numerous UN system organizations, including the UN General Assembly and Security Council, Food and Agriculture Organization, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UN Office of the High Commissioner for Refugees, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. Russia also participates in some of the most important UN peacekeeping missions, including the United Nations Mission in Sierra Leone, United Nations, Iraq, Kuwait Observation Mission, United Nations Institute for Training and Research, United Nations Mission in Bosnia and Herzegovina, United Nations Operation in Côte d'Ivoire, United Nations Mission in Ethiopia and Eritrea, United Nations Mission of Observers in Prevlaka, United Nations Observer Mission in Georgia, United Nations Transitional Administration in East Timor, United Nations Truce Supervision Organization, United Nations Mission for the Referendum in Western Sahara, United Nations Organization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Russia also holds memberships in the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, Bank for International Settlements, Black Sea Economic Cooperation, Council of the Baltic Sea States, Council of Europe, European Organization for Nuclear Research, Commonwealth of Independent States, Collective Security Treaty Organization, Euro-Atlantic Partnership Council, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, Group of 20, International Atomic Energy Agency, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, International Civil Aviation Organization, International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement, International Development Association, International Finance Corporation, International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement, International Hydrographic Organization, International Labour Organization, International Monetary Fund, International Maritime Organization, International Mobile Satellite Organization, International Criminal Police Organization, International Olympic Committee, International Organization for Migration, International Organization for Standardization, International Telecommunication Union, Latin American Integration Association, Non-Aligned Movement, Nuclear Suppliers Group, Organization of American States, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Permanent Court of Arbitration, Partnership for Peace, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, World Tourism Organization, Universal Postal Union, World Customs Organization, World Federation of Trade Unions, World Health Organization, World Intellectual Property Organization, World Meteorological Organization, World Trade Organization, Zanga Committee.